We're going to go first to Notre Dame quarterback signee Steve Angeli from Oradell Bergen Catholic. We'll watch a couple of games from his senior year highlights. So, Mike, what do you see on him when you're watching his tape?
I played with a kid, Matt Lavecchio, some Irish fans may recall, who was in my recruiting class. So I'm super familiar with Bergen's program, a natural fit for a program like an ND. Um, Angeli's interesting. I'm going to call him an athlete, right? He's an athlete at the position. Some people say I've heard, say he's athletic for the quarterback position or he's sneaky athletic. I'll call him an athlete. Um, so there's that. And then the other thing that kind of jumps out to me, really good size. Notre Dame in the last several years, save for a few different, like a Deshaun Kaiser, if you will. I mean, that's going back, but Phil Jerkovich obviously didn't work out. We don't really, generally speaking, have like your 6'4" type quarterback. So this kid's big enough, plenty big, 6'2" or so. I've heard you say multiple times, Mike. You're the this is your kind of your fan club for this year is you're an Angeli guy. Last year was Mr. Alt, so you're at least 1 for 1 with that. But you said that Steve's dad's like a 6'6", really big guy, so there might be some room to grow there. But so I'm going to call him an athlete. He has a little bit of understated swagger to me. Makes some things happen. Doesn't get a chance to throw a lot, or maybe as much as your 5-star Elite 11 types, maybe West Coast types, high school quarterbacks. My favorite thing about Angeli is just a really natural thrower.
Yeah.
Real natural. Like it's when you watch this kid throw a ball, Mike, I'd love to know like what his hand size is. I mean, we'll learn that, if he ever makes it to the combine pro day type thing, but a kid that can spin a ball like that and it's just a real nice, easy release. And it looks like it's natural. It doesn't look like he's, to bend any of these, quarterback coaches or where it's like it's overdone. But so here's that athleticism right here. And that's all you need is just a little bit of escapability. I think what we have on the roster now, and Cohen's more of a statue, and Tyler's exceptionally athletic, but I would say that Angeli's kind of a nice little middle ground there.
Sure.
Maybe probably runs like in the 4.7-ish, 4.8 range, which is plenty fast, folks, for the position. But yeah, he just really spins the ball and just seems like a confident kid, looks the part. So good get.
Couple quick things. This
Sure.
film, this is senior film. He hasn't put together like a highlight, so like a 8-minute, 10-minute highlight film of senior year yet. So this is just individual games. So this, if you're like, where are all the touchdowns? So we're
Yeah.
not seeing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I remarked earlier tonight, kind of prepping for this podcast. It seems like once kids recruitment, this, Mike. I mean, once they've gotten their star ranking and they've got their top 5, I don't think they do as much legwork in terms of putting together the
No.
highlight tapes and such. So it's almost difficult, ironically, to find senior year on these kids. You got to seek them out on Twitter. But this is speed to the edge here. Finishes the play. Get up, Steve. So yeah, I like him. It's maybe an interesting comp would be like maybe a little bit bigger Drew Pine.
Okay.
Kind of that same swagger, confidence, nice arm, athletic ability, just a little bit, substantially bigger.
Yeah. The thing what I say about him is like the mental makeup. That's huge for that position. Like kid's been battle tested, played a lot of football. I mean, he's just a really solid player. He's got the good, I don't think he's got elite arm strength, but he's got above average arm strength. He's got really good athleticism for someone who's, he's already bigger than Buckner. Buckner's like 6'1", 200 pounds. Angeli's 6'2", 210. I love his mechanics. I mean, he's a great Notre Dame fit. I mean, there's,
Yeah,
I don't think
it's a safe sign. It's a safe sign, and I
but
want a 5.
was still like generally high upside too.
Yeah,
He threw like 120 passes this season. I mean, they just don't throw the ball a ton in that
Sure.
power Catholic ball in New Jersey.
I still think there's room, and you could forecast it in Notre Dame's future with Freeman kind of being our lead recruiter, sort of hired gun out there. You could forecast that we're going to get one of these, top five pick, future top five pick, elite 11, top five-star quarterbacks, hopefully without the ego. And it's interesting, whereas you look at our roster, the way it's constructed in that quarterback room, it's a pretty easy sell for a recruiter to say, like, we don't have any other five-star type quarterbacks on the roster. So it's depending on how Tyler does into the future, but that would sort of be the narrative, is just to say, hey, you'd be the first five-star guy we've had here in a number of years. So Steve's a really good player. He's not, and it's going to hurt your feelings, Mike, but yeah, he's not like that five-star
No,
just
he's not.
stud. He's not that stud. And yes, the upside's obviously there. There's no glaring concerns, absolutely. There just doesn't have that kind of impact that we all want to see,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, look, I really like this Mike. I don't know if you know about Brady Allen. He's a Purdue quarterback signee. Like, put up huge numbers playing in Southwestern Indiana, and lit it up. I think his team won a state title, and it's like, I think if you put an Angeli in that kind of system at the high school level, I think all the pundits out there would love him. But his offense was very pro style. Angeli checked a lot at the lines, checking out of passes into runs. I mean, like,
Mm-hmm.
he's just like, I think he's a high upside game manager. And what I've been told is that he is just like, his knowledge of the game of football
I
is,
believe that.
is really high. And, so I think he's going to be a really solid addition. Quick shout out, Bolton Landed Brewing. Appreciate the free beer as always. Mike, we did skip something we wanted to open with, so we'll go back to that because I forgot. Just kind of your general impressions
Yeah.
of this offensive group. You got Angeli, one running back to Jarian Price, one receiver, only one receiver in this class when it seemed like for a while there, four. It was going to be 3 to 4, and then we get one. Tobias Merriweather, he's a darn good one. Two tight ends, Holden Stays, Eli Raridan, both freaks in my opinion. And then 5 offensive linemen, Joey Tanona, Billy Strouth, Ty Chan, Emil Wagner, and Ashton Craig. So just your general thoughts on the offensive group.
Yeah, I'll get to that. Just wanted to put a bow on
Sure.
Angeli. Not a knock at all. But again, what we want, like you said, you're comparing him to this kid that's going to Purdue, right? That put up all the numbers, the gaudy stats. I feel like Notre Dame fans, at least, I as a fan, we kind of run that pro style offense, a nice mix of run and pass. I think we all want a quarterback where if he had to go win it on his own, he could, right? So that's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So as to not be kind of misconstrue things, but in terms of the class in general, both offense and defense. We're only going to get to offense tonight. It's a really good class, really, really good class. We held down the number one ranking for a couple months or something, Mike, which gives us some notoriety kind of in the recruiting world that we touched it and we kind of came back down to earth. But it's a great class. When you look at Coach Freeman as a coach, and I just look at, like, defensively speaking, look what we've done on a defense this year, where you haven't even really had a full offseason with Coach Freeman's scheme. You've got like backups playing at linebacker. JD Bertrand has had a hell of a year, all things considered. He's like a third stringer, prior to fall camp. So now you're starting to get some of these athlete types in here. And, Jalen Sneed to me is kind of the crown jewel on the defensive side of the ball. And then the other thing that's notable about this class, when you compare it to the current state of the team in this past season, lots of offensive linemen in this year's class. And the first 3, 4, 5, 6 games of the year, that was the biggest question mark. Ironically, at a program like Notre Dame, it's kind of turned itself into O-line U. So we don't want that to happen again. You had some key injuries. You had some guys that maybe didn't develop. So you kind of play the numbers game here. Nothing against any of these offensive line recruits, but I think they're all going to pan out. But that was just an interesting juxtaposition in terms of our biggest struggle on offense this year was the offensive line play. and then we back it up with the number of kids that we're going to sign this year, have signed this year. So really good class.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
And oh, real quick too, so you touched on the one wide receiver.
right.
Um, First of all, I really, really like Merriweather. And as I'm watching this Packers game, like he kind of reminds me of that MVS Marcus Valdez Scantling in terms of measurables, kind of slim, but great movement, like real pliable, bouncy. I really like him. And we've got a good offensive coordinator in Coach Reese, and we've got a bevy of tight ends at our disposal. There's a lot you can do with limited numbers at the wide receiver position. You can do a lot out of 12 personnel. You just give me an imaginary whiteboard, but like you can move Tyree out and he can move into a slot, right? And you can have Diggs as your downhill runner. I think Eli Raridan's a kid that you can split out wide. We've seen Mayer used as a wide receiver at times. So it's kind of a glaring, like, gosh, we only got the one. Um, but the less kids that are in the room, the quicker they develop. And that's also an interesting thing where it's kind of been a struggle for Notre Dame's program over the last few years is like, Jesus, it takes 4 years for a receiver to get on the field. That won't be the case going forward.
Yeah. Wasn't the case this year. You had Colzine style
Yeah.
play, and yeah, absolutely.
And I like Merriweather better than Colsey. I mean, comparing the two, it's just my preference. Um, he's a really good get, but we'll get into it.